We're moving on to final thoughts. Enjoy some Final Fantasy 16 gameplay with the Apex 5. Also, final thoughts are going to be pretty long, and I didn't record enough gameplay with the controller cam, so sorry. Just know that I used the Apex 5 the entire time. Alright, here we go. I went ahead and tested a number of games beyond what was shown in the main video. If you're watching the clips version of the final thoughts and want to see more, then check out the full video. I'll leave it linked in the comments. What do I think of the Flydigi Apex 5? Well, let's start off with the fact that I specifically purchased the Wu Chang Fallen Feathers Special Edition controller because the standard version only comes in white. The special edition looks phenomenal. It has a beautiful shade of red front and center. The Chinese characters running down the controller look pretty tight. I wish the accented buttons were a deeper shade of red, along with making the clear triggers the same color, but they still look pretty solid nonetheless. The textured grip isn't as intense as it is on the Xbox Elite Series 2 controller, which is a downside for me personally, but I'm glad they opted to include it. The bottom back paddles feel fantastic. The top back buttons are taking me a little bit of time to get used to. I love how responsive they are, but wish they were protruding out of the controller a bit more so that they were easier to press. Compared to the Elite controller, as long as the paddles don't fail like they do on the Elite, it's a point for Flydigi. Same with the bumpers and triggers, which after going through 3 Elite controllers, I'm convinced they are designed to break within the first 6 months of owning it. Speaking of shoulders, the Apex 5 features 2 additional shoulder buttons positioned right next to the triggers. I absolutely love them. Along with back buttons, it feels like a natural evolution to controllers, and I feel like it's something I'm gonna want in any daily driver going forward. The mechanical buttons are a very interesting feature, also something I need to get used to. I like it a lot, but do wish they had a little more intense click to it. At the very least, mechanical buttons do last significantly longer than membrane-based buttons. If gaming is your primary hobby, then I'm sure you've worn out numerous buttons before. If it's anything like my mechanical keyboard, then I expect the mechanical buttons to last well over 6 years and still feel the same as it did on day one. The D-pad. Not a fan. Don't get me wrong, it works, and it works really well. I just hate the design. I want a standard 4-directional D-pad, not this weird hybrid with grooves that give it a circular design. You can purchase 2 different compatible D-pads, but both have the same issue of it being a circular design instead of the standard one. The Apex 5 features the oh-so-famous Hall Effect joysticks, something that I've never experienced before. And I gotta say, it feels the same. Literally the same. The big deal is that Hall Effect sticks extremely minimize the chance for stick drift, or outright prevents it, I guess. I've had a billion controllers across a billion consoles, never experienced stick drift once. But at least I have peace of mind that it likely won't happen here. You can adjust stick tension as well, just like in the Elite controller. I usually set it and forget it, but I was shocked at how important this feature is to me. The first time using the Apex 5, the sticks definitely felt too smooth, like it had nearly no resistance to it. That's because I've been using the Elite Series 2 as a daily driver since it originally launched, and I increased the tension on those. As soon as I increased the tension on the Apex 5, it felt like an absolute dream. The Apex 5 features its own Xbox button in the top center of the controller, except it's the Flydigi logo. The Flydigi logo rocks, so it looks awesome on the controller. It works just like the Xbox button, which, thank God. Even on PC, I regularly use the Xbox button to pull up the game bar to either adjust audio on the fly, or to get my computer to lose focus on the game so I can move my mouse to one of my other screens. I never use Alt-Tab, doesn't make sense on a multi-monitor setup. The logo button is just significantly faster. Now, something that definitely takes getting used to are the start and select buttons. They are now to the left and right of the logo button, which means they're placed quite a bit higher than on an Xbox controller. Not that it's bad, it's just different. During the main video, I had some connection issues while connected through the included dongle. I did further testing, but this time I plugged the dongle into my USB extender, which reaches away from the computer and sits to the left of me. I'm happy to report that my issues were nothing more than signal interference, and moving the dongle away from that particular hotspot fixed all issues. Alright, time to move on to the Flydigi Space Station app, which will lead me to talk about other controller features. The app rocks. I like this thing way more than the Xbox Xbox Accessories app. The primary reason being that there's only one non-important feature, as far as I could tell, that requires the controller to be plugged in, which I'll mention later. The Space Station app is easy to navigate and simple to use. Editing buttons is a breeze. As mentioned earlier, if you need to assign buttons for a game you're trying to figure out, you don't need to have your controller plugged in. Just bind whatever you want to whatever button and it's changed instantly. And when I say bind whatever you want, I mean whatever you want. I was extremely shocked when I accidentally binded a keyboard key to the controller. This is one of the greatest features on this app. You cannot do this on the Xbox Accessories app. The best game I was able to test keyboard keys on a controller was Grim Dawn. It's one of the greatest ARPGs out there. If you love the genre, you'll love this game. Grim Dawn, unfortunately, has extremely bare-bones controller support. You can certainly beat the game no issue, I've done it a few times, but you only have so many buttons to bind in-game actions to on a standard controller. Even on the Elite controllers, since you can only rebind the paddles to other controller buttons. This means you're never really playing to the best of your ability, or menu navigation is an extreme pain in the ass. With the Apex 5, you have an additional 6 buttons. Binding keyboard keys to these 6 buttons means in-game, you have 6 more actions you can bind to the controller. This is a game changer. I no longer feel as limited as before. Using third-party apps like WASD was kind of a pain in the ass when I used my Elite controller. The Flydigi Space Station app just works, and it's so simple to use. Back to Grim Dawn for a second. Fortunately, Grim Dawn is extremely friendly when switching between controller and keyboard and mouse. Not every game is like this. Some games require you to completely restart it just to switch inputs, others stutter or completely freeze up for a second or two, so your mileage may vary when it comes to this. Let's talk about the triggers now. The Elite controller features hair triggers, and I honestly love this for Monster Hunter when I'm playing a ranged weapon like the heavy bowgun. I just need the trigger to be more like a button press. The full travel bothers me when using the weapon. The hair trigger ended up feeling so good to me that it feels terrible to play heavy bowgun without it. Seeing that the Apex 5 doesn't have hair triggers honestly made me a little nervous, but I thought, okay, I could always use the extra shoulder button, bind it to the right trigger, and problem solved. I hope. That was actually Solution 2. Solution 1 is to use the Apex 5's adaptive triggers to simulate hair triggers, or dampening is what it's called here. Unfortunately, every review I saw before committing to the purchase made it sound like it was fairly easy to force your way through the dampening starting position, which you can adjust to however far you want the triggers to go. So what was the end result? Well, I felt like I was completely lied to. That shit fucking works. It feels fantastic, and you genuinely have to put a decent amount of force to get through the dampening. As for Solution 2, rebinding the trigger to the extra shoulder button, that felt great too. The extra shoulder buttons are positioned in a completely natural spot, so I had no problem with that at all. Since we're on the subject, let's dive a little further into adaptive triggers specifically. I've never been a PlayStation guy. I love their games, hate their controllers. Not a fan of the symmetrical sticks, so there's really no reason for me to use a DualSense controller on PC. Unfortunately, that means I've never gotten a chance to try out the adaptive triggers. I do have a PSVR 2 though, which does have PC support, and the controllers do feature adaptive triggers. Unfortunately, yet again, in Sony's infinite wisdom, this feature is unavailable on PC. There are workarounds, but I've never bothered with it, so the Apex 5 is my first foray into this tech. In order to use adaptive triggers, you can personally apply certain pre-made profiles to one or both triggers within the Space Station app, and from there you can slightly adjust it to get the certain feel you're looking for. You can also specifically go into the adaptive triggers page and see what games officially support it. There are also unofficial games that show up there that the folks at Flydigi made a profile for that activate based on certain actions in-game. From there, you can turn on adaptive triggers for specific games, which will force those games to recognize the Apex 5 as a DualSense controller. At that point, you'll be using the adaptive triggers however the developer intended them to be used. Overall, pretty damn cool. Now, I did see someone once say that adaptive triggers as a whole is extremely hit or miss with people. You either love it or you hate it. Personally, I hate it. I really hate it. It feels like the most gimmicky thing ever thrown into a controller. If you love it, that's awesome. It's just certainly not for me. I mean, I love it for the fact that I can simulate hair triggers, but outside of that, I hate it. These are supposed to be pretty comparable to those on the DualSense, so no fault to Flydigi. They're doing the exact thing PlayStation is doing. On to gyro. It's neat. It works. I tried it in Black Ops 7. The problem here is that ever since I moved to PC in 2019 and learned how to play shooters with mouse and keyboard, I've never been able to go back to controller. It just feels god-awful to me. You might be thinking, what about Monster Hunter? Honestly, aiming in Monster Hunter feels better than aiming with a controller on literally any other game. On top of that, Monster Hunter rarely ever needs you to be pinpoint accurate, as opposed to something like Call of Duty. The monsters are big, so more often than not, you just have to aim at the general area you want to hit and you're good. Anyways, as far as I'm aware, gyro only really benefits shooters, but if I can't use a controller in shooters in the first place, then gyro only really makes the experience slightly less crap. I'm more of a pointer style gyro shooter, so like the Wii Remote with Motion Plus and Switch Joy-Con where you're really just aiming with one hand that has free range. Gyro on the Steam Deck or a traditionally shaped controller that you hold with two hands never felt great to me. Alright, just a few more features that we'll go through quickly. The Apex 5 has a small screen on the controller. You can adjust a few settings there, not really useful to me since it's extremely limited compared to the Space Station app, so this is likely for console players. The coolest thing about the screen though, is that you can have an image or GIF on there. As far as I'm aware, this is the only thing that actually requires you to plug it into the computer, and maybe updating the controller as well. I threw my logo on it as a joke, but god damn, does that shit look pretty baller. You do have to adjust colors to be a bit more saturated and generally brighter for it to look good on the Apex 5 screen though. Kind of the same thought process Nintendo had before backlit screens became standard on their handhelds. So like GBA era. Outside of the adaptive triggers, the Apex 5 has standard rumble, but you can crank that shit up to be a jackhammer. When I tested it out for the main video, I was dying laughing. It also features a light strip at the edge of the bottom of the controller. There are a few modes, some of which you can customize. Pretty neat, and I think it works fantastic when you use it in tandem with the next feature. Profile switching. This is extremely important, and I was relieved when I found out the Apex 5 does have this feature. The Elite controller has a profile button that you can press to switch between the 3 onboard profiles you can save to the controller. The Apex 5, on the other hand, does not have this button. Instead, it has a function button in the center right of the underside of the controller. Just press and hold that button, followed by a press of one of the 4 face buttons, and bam, you're now a profile switching master. This means you can save 4 profiles onto the controller as opposed to the Elite's 3, which does make a big difference. Set a specific color of light or light mode to each profile to easily tell which one you're on. Or don't, I don't care what you do. Now, my only gripe with profile switching is that the function button is a little inconvenient to press. It should have been placed significantly further left, not center right. In any case, I never need to rapidly profile switch, so it's not that big of a deal. On the center left, you have the turbo button. Personally, not a fan. I'd much rather set a macro to one of the additional buttons and set it to loop if I'm grinding in a JRPG, which honestly is the only reason I'd ever use turbo in the first place. Don't underestimate the power of macros for a JRPG. I ruined the A button on a controller before because I was power grinding in Final Fantasy III. Never again. Macros all the way. I do wish the physical turbo button itself were rebindable since I don't want to use it the way Flydigi intends. To each their own, I suppose. You might like the on-the-fly turbo button use. That's pretty much it, folks. The Flydigi Apex 5 is the closest thing to a perfect controller I have ever experienced, and the Space Station Companion app is absolutely phenomenal. The Apex 5 is extremely competitive in price compared to the Xbox Elite Series 2 controller, while offering significantly better hardware, significantly more features, and a more robust and easy-to-use companion app. There's only really one thing I can't test, and that's the longevity and durability of the controller. Since the release of the Xbox Elite Series 2 back in 2019, I've gone through 3 of these controllers, all of which had some sort of issue, typically with bumpers and triggers. Sometimes even worse, like the grips detaching from the plastic, buttons no longer functioning, or the controller literally falling apart as shown during the unboxing portion of the main video. I've repaired these controllers as much as I could, multiple times just to make them last as long as possible. Even going so far as making a Frankenstein's monster using the boards of 2 different Elite controllers. But it's gotten to the point where they're no longer repairable. If the Apex 5 can last even 6 months without the bumpers going wacky tabacky, it automatically wins. I hope to God this thing never breaks, cause more features just means more complex repairs. That scares me, and a quick Google search online shows that there isn't much to buy in terms of replacement parts. That scares me even more. If I were to offer a few points of advice to Flydigi for their next Apex controller, I'd say offer more than just the color white for the controller. I purchased a brand new Wu Chang Edition Apex 5 off of eBay for retail price, despite never playing Wu Chang, because I hated the one singular color Flydigi offers for the Apex 5. A standard black controller will sell, I promise you. Include a true D-pad. Give the face buttons a little more of a satisfying click to them. Also, give the face buttons customizable RGB. I think that'd be extremely tight. Make the back buttons protrude out more so that they're easier to press. And most importantly, keep doing what you're doing. I can't believe we live in an era where third-party controllers are king. I'm sold. You've made a fan out of me. The Flydigi Apex 5 is easily my favorite controller of all time. If you enjoyed the video, please consider subscribing or becoming a member of the channel, and follow me on Twitch for more of my shenanigans. Most importantly, hit up the Discord where you can keep up with all my projects, uploads, and live streams. I hope to see you there. Thank you so much for watching.